The rain came down in thin silver sheets, tapping softly on the window of the small workshop. Inside, under the flickering light of an old bulb, sat Arjun, a young inventor whose hands were stained with grease and frustration. The table before him was littered with wires, bolts, and scraps of metal that looked more like chaos than creation. He stared at his half-finished project, a compact wind turbine he had been building for over a year, and felt the heavy weight of defeat pressing on his chest. "Maybe I'm just not cut out for this," he muttered, running his hands through his messy black hair. The words stung as they left his lips, but deep down, they felt true. Arjun had failed too many times. Every prototype he built had ended in smoke, sparks, or silence. The people in his village had stopped asking about his big invention. Even his father had told him gently a week ago, "Son, sometimes dreams are just not meant to work the way we want." But for Arjun, giving up was something he had always resisted, until now. He leaned back in his chair, staring blankly at the walls that were filled with blueprints, notes, and motivational quotes he once believed in. One of them, written in his late mother's handwriting, said, "One more try is sometimes all it takes." He looked at the note, torn and faded, and felt a lump rise in his throat. His mother had passed away when he was 12, but her words had guided him through every hardship. She used to tell him that every great story was built on moments of persistence when everything else said, "Quit." He stood up, walked to the small shelf, and took out an old photo of them together, his mother smiling, holding his little invention from school, a cardboard windmill. "You believed in me when no one did," he whispered, eyes glistening. "But I've tried, Ma. I've tried so many times." He placed the photo down and walked toward the window. The rain had slowed, and a faint glow of dawn was breaking through the clouds. Something inside him stirred, a quiet, fragile whisper that said, "One more try." He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and turned back to his workbench. The project wasn't just about proving himself. It was about giving his village, which faced constant power cuts, a chance at light, at progress. He had promised himself that one day, the children would study under bright lamps, not flickering candles. Arjun grabbed his notebook and began reviewing his latest design flaws. The blade angles were off, the generator's coil wasn't producing consistent output. He thought about what he could salvage and what he could redesign. Slowly, determination began to replace doubt. By mid-morning, the workshop hummed with renewed energy. The sound of drilling, soldering, and tinkering filled the air. Sweat dripped down Arjun's face, but he didn't stop. He tested, failed, adjusted, and tested again. The sun sank and rose again, but he didn't notice time passing. On the third day, exhaustion hit him hard. His eyes burned, his hands shook, but the turbine finally looked ready for testing. He carried it out to the open field behind his home, a small hill overlooking the village. The wind was gentle, and the sky was painted with streaks of orange and purple. He connected the small turbine to a battery and flipped the switch. The blades began to turn slowly. Arjun's heart raced. He checked the readings. A flicker of power ran through the wire. The bulb attached to it glowed, for a brief, glorious moment, before dimming out again. It wasn't enough. Arjun fell to his knees. Why? Why does it always fail at the last step? He slammed his fist on the ground. For a long time, he just sat there, staring at the lifeless bulb. The temptation to walk away tugged at him harder than ever. Maybe he should just sell the parts, take a regular job, stop dreaming of impossible things. But then, a small voice came from behind him. "Bia, did it work this time?" It was Mina, the little girl from next door. Her hair was tied in two messy braids, her school uniform patched at the elbows. She had always been curious about his inventions, often standing by the door to watch him work. Arjun forced a smile. "Almost. Not quite yet." She looked at the turbine with wide eyes. "But you'll try again, right?" You always say, nothing's really failed until you stop trying. Her words hit him like a spark. He had told her that exact phrase months ago. Now it came back to him, not as a cliché, but as truth. He looked at the wind turbine, the bulb, the sky. Maybe he had been too focused on perfection. Maybe what he needed wasn't a miracle, just one more try, done differently. Arjun picked up his toolkit and returned to the workshop. This time, he analyzed everything with fresh perspective. He adjusted the copper wiring, improved the magnetic coil alignment, and changed the angle of the blade slightly to catch more airflow. Each movement was careful, deliberate, almost meditative. The days turned into nights again, but Arjun's resolve stayed unbroken. The villagers whispered about him, some admiring his persistence, others calling it madness. But Arjun didn't care. Finally, on a crisp morning, with the wind steady and strong, Arjun carried his modified turbine back to the hill. Meena followed, clutching her notebook tightly. A few curious villagers gathered at a distance. He planted the turbine firmly into the ground and connected it once more. His heart pounded as he flipped the switch. The blades began to spin, faster and faster. The generator hummed. Arjun's eyes darted to the bulb, and this time, it glowed. Bright, steady, unwavering light. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Meena squealed with joy. It's working. Bia, it's working. Arjun stood frozen, tears filling his eyes as the light shone brighter than ever. The turbine whirred steadily, converting the breeze into power. For the first time, his dream wasn't a theory. It was real, tangible, alive. He fell to his knees, laughing and crying at the same time. All the sleepless nights, all the failures, all the pain, they suddenly made sense. Every failure had been leading him to this moment. That evening, the village gathered outside his workshop. Arjun connected the turbine to a small battery grid he had built earlier. One by one, the streetlights flickered to life. The children cheered. The elders nodded in awe. For the first time in years, the village glowed under steady light powered by the wind. Arjun's father approached him quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did it, son. Arjun smiled softly. No, Baba. We did it, me, Ma's words, and one more try. The next few months changed everything. Arjun's design caught the attention of engineers from nearby towns. Universities invited him to speak about his journey. But even as success surrounded him, he remained humble. Whenever someone asked how he managed to achieve it after so many failures, his answer was always the same, because I tried one more time when everything told me to stop. Years later, Arjun's village became a model for renewable energy in rural areas. Young engineers visited him for advice, and he would sit with them in his workshop, smiling as they struggled through their own failures. One day, Meena, now a teenager, walked in holding a small mechanical project of her own, a simple water purifier. She looked frustrated. It's not working, Bia. Maybe I'm not meant for this. Arjun looked at her, a faint smile curling his lips. That's what I used to say, he chuckled. Do you know what my mother taught me? Meena nodded. One more try. He nodded. Exactly. You never know, the next try might be the one that changes everything. She grinned and returned to work, her determination reignited. Arjun watched her, his heart swelling with pride. That night, as the wind turbines hummed softly outside, he sat by the window, looking up at the stars. He thought of his mother, of her faith, of every failure that had shaped him. The power of one more try, he whispered to himself, isn't just about success. It's about courage, the courage to believe when no one else does. He leaned back, the soft glow of the lights illuminating his workshop, and smiled. Somewhere deep within, he knew this truth would outlive him, carried forward by everyone who chose to try once more instead of giving up. The wind outside grew stronger, spinning the turbines faster, filling the night with a low, steady hum, like the heartbeat of hope itself. And in that small village that once lived in darkness, one man's final try had brought not just light to homes, but fire to countless hearts, proving that sometimes, all the difference in the world lies in the power of one more try.